Good morning, everybody. Today I'm here to talk about something that may resonate with some of you, all of you, or none of you, but it's something that's been on my mind because I'm seeing it over and over and over again. And I'm not just seeing the pattern of this happening, but I'm seeing the pattern of denial in it happening. And the subject that I'm going to talk about today is why adult children of alcoholics and dysfunctional families, or really any kind of chaotic families or a chaotic childhood, why people in that world attract people that are just like them or attract people that are not good for them. I know if you're anything like me and you're out there and you grew up in a toxic family or dysfunctional family, all you ever said was, I'm never going to marry someone like that. I'm never going to be with someone like that. I'm going to do the exact polar opposite of what happened to me. And then what do? We turn around and we marry someone or we get into relationships with the people that we swore we would never do that. So why? Today I'm going to talk about why we get into relationships that are not good for us, why we stay in them, even though we know we should get out of them, and what we can do about it to kind of change our conditioning, change our pattern, change our thinking to know that we are good enough to deserve a better, more healthy relationship. So first thing I want to talk about is just really the three things that kind of sets adult children apart in their thought patterns that is different than most people. The one is that you have so much conditioning around love being conditional or unpredictable that you learn to associate love with anxiety or performance. So you automatically have these unhealthy attachment styles, and they form in chaotic environments and they thrive in chaotic environments. So you're kind of used to and comfortable with those different attachment styles or those different ways of lack of communication or just unhealthy relationships in general. The other thing is that our brains love familiarity. So even though we know something might be bad for us or we know something is toxic, our brain is more comfortable with familiarity than pleasure. So we gravitate towards what is familiar versus what is healthy or good for us. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you have gotten to this point in your healing journey or not, but I remember when I first started getting into situations that were healthy, that were a good relationship, that should have felt right. It was so uncomfortable to me because I just didn't know how to react. I didn't know how to read the situation. I didn't know how to act. I really didn't know who to be because at that point I wasn't able and comfortable to be myself. So I gravitated towards the needy people, towards the toxic people, towards the people that put me down like I had been put down my entire life. That's what was familiar to me. And that's where my brain led me because it felt safe, because it felt familiar. The other thing that I'm going to talk about is just your basic rule of self role, your general feeling of self-worth or your self-esteem. So we get into a lot of times these toxic relationships, or we don't get out of them because we don't feel worthy or we don't feel like we deserve to be treated better. So we let people treat us poorly. So that's kind of the big three things. So it's like literally the role of your conditioning, how you've been conditioned as a child, your subconscious patterns that you've developed over the years, and your role of self-worth. Now, why? What does this lead to? Why do we attract these people? One, we have a lot of people pleasing tendencies. So we want to be caretakers, we want to be fixers, we want to be able to feel important and feel like we have a purpose. So we're attracted to people that maybe possibly grew up in the same environment we did. They grew up in a toxic environment and we feel like we can fix them or we can make it better. And we're drawn to these people because it gives us a sense of purpose. The next part is about codependency and boundaries. So when you're codependent, you're literally wrapped up and addicted to taking care of everybody else but yourself. And with that, you let people walk all over your boundaries. You don't have boundaries, you let them cross the boundaries. And in that, it makes it very easy for people who are either toxic or maybe possibly narcissistic or just not good people to take advantage of those weak boundaries because they know that they can cross them and they know they can cross them on a regular basis and get what they want. The next one, we are very conditioned to not understand a healthy relationship. So we actually thrive in that up and down and that roller coaster of toxic relationships. So where what we might confuse, what might be healthy love might be this really strong, intense feeling. We're so used to the ups and the downs and the toxicity and the makeup, the great makeups after the horrible fights, that we're comfortable in that. And we confuse those highs and lows as passion. So we're literally mistaking drama for love. And that's a kind of scary one, but it makes sense. We think if we fight passionately and then we make up passionately, that it's love and they love us, where sometimes we're just wrapped up in so much drama that we don't even understand the intensity of the amount of chaos it is. The next one I want to talk about is just a fear of abandonment and rejection. So a lot of us have this major fear of being abandoned. Sometimes we were abandoned by our mother or our father, or they weren't emotionally there for us. And we felt like we were just kind of left out to flounder on our own. And we will maintain a relationship at any cost to avoid that fear and abandonment. But what that does is it not just leads us into these unhealthy relationships, but even if we have the red flags and we know that they're not good for us, we stay in the relationship because we don't want to have to face the fear and the abandonment or the rejection. So we stay in these toxic relationships way too long. The other one is we seek validation. So all of our lives, you hear a lot of my podcast, you hear me talking about what did we miss in our lives? We miss being seen. We miss being heard. We miss being validated. We miss feeling important and special. And while we seek people that are unlikely to provide those things, we're constantly chasing those things. So we're constantly kind of chasing those feelings of familiarity or those feelings of acceptance or belonging, because the approval feels like it's fixing something that was unfixable from the past. Now, I have to tell you, a lot of times that is how you get wrapped up in those narcissistic people, because what do they do in the beginning? The very first stage of the narcissism is they love bomb you. They're telling you how good they are and how much they love you and how much they can't live without you. And we're getting fed that validation and that feeling of importance and that feeling of being seen and heard that we never got. And in a healthy relationship, people take that slow. People don't come on the first date and say, I can't live without you. They feel out the ground and they see how things are and they get to know someone. Where in a narcissistic relationship, they don't. They come in full speed, full force, and they love bomb you and they make you feel like, oh my gosh, these are the things I have never heard in my life and I may never hear again. And so I'm going to take you in. But then you wrap up all the other things in there, the lack of boundaries, the lack of being able to stick up for yourself, the lack of self-worth, all of those other feelings we have. And it makes it virtually impossible for us to be ready to let go of those relationships, no matter how toxic they are. So I don't know if any of that resonates with you or if any of it makes sense, but to me, it kind of does make sense. I'm at a place now where if somebody comes up to me or I get ready, and it could be even in a friendship, and it feels like it's a toxic relationship, or it feels like they're just straining so hard to get that validation or that acceptance that they never got. My red flag radar goes up and I'm like, no, this is probably not good for my healing, for my growth, for my mental well-being. If I meet, I'm married now, so obviously this is not an issue. But in the past, if I had met someone and you just know right away that they're those needy people, or they start love bombing you, or you're going from a 0 to a 10 in 3 days, that is not healthy. And now, because I do have the self-esteem and I do have the faith in myself and the belief in myself that I deserve something better, I can put up the red flag radar and I can shut it off. I can say, absolutely not. But it takes time to get there. It takes time to have the support in yourself or the belief in yourself that you believe that you deserve good things, or that you can step out of a relationship, that it's okay to be on your own, that it's okay to not have somebody there to take care of you. those are the things we work on together. Those are the things that we build up that self-esteem, and you're able to walk out to the world on your own and not feel like you always need someone. Because I promise you, you are better off being by yourself, learning to love yourself and provide for yourself and live for yourself than you are being in a relationship that is not toxic, or that is toxic and not good for your mental well-being. So, so what are some steps? What are some things that we can do to help us make better choices and then learn to break free from those toxic relationships? The first thing is recognizing the patterns, recognizing and being aware that this is what you're prone to do because of your past, and know that it doesn't define you. The past is not who you are. The past is the habits you've developed, or you've developed these habits and brought them into the future or into the present because of what happened to you, but that you can change that you can change the beliefs, you can change the patterns. But the very first step is just recognizing the patterns, recognizing what a toxic family relationship can do to you, and self-checking and looking at yourself. And if you have some of these patterns, knowing this is just, you're acting the way you're acting because of what happened to you, but in one moment you can change the way you decide to live your life. One moment, that's all it takes. I remember, I can remember several of those moments in my life where all of a sudden something would snip in me or snap in me, or an idea would hit me, or somebody would say something to me, and it would literally hit me and change the entire trajectory of my life, because I would all of a sudden go, no, I'm better than that, or no, I don't deserve that, or yes, I can do this. Yes, I can be positive. Yes, I can make those better choices. So it's really just being aware and learning, read about, just Google how to stay away from toxic relationships, red sign for toxic relationships. How do I break up with a when I know something is not good for me? Just start doing some research, learning and educating yourself. The next thing is do inner child work. Now, if you've listened to my podcast before, you know that I go back to inner child work all the time. Because when you go back and you soothe the wounds of your inner child, you stop looking for other people on the outside to fill the voids of what you didn't get when you were a child. Because when we go out and we are attracted to unhealthy people or toxic relationships or needy people, or we're doing is trying to fill those wounds or heal those wounds from way back when. So do some inner child work. I myself did about 6 years of inner child work consistently, and I do it all the time. I still look at a picture of my little self when I'm questioning things. I have one on the mirror. I have one in my journal. I have pictures of me when I was 5, 6, 7 years old, and I'm constantly and consistently talking to that inner child and reaffirming that they don't need that validation from external people, that they have everything they need inside to be the best versions of themselves. The next thing is starting to really focus on boundaries and working on your self-worth. So and you might need a support system to do this. Start learning to say no. Start learning to go with your instinct. When something, feels wrong, or you don't want to do something that somebody's asking you to do, just don't do it. And I know it sounds so simple, but just making that small decision to go with your gut, go with your instinct, instead of going with what you think other people want you to say or do, you're going to start to turn your life around 100%. Because when you can start walking out as yourself, and let's say a situation comes up and you don't want to go to this party because everybody's going to be drinking too much, and the patterns of what happens. You go, you drink, you say, I'm not going to drink a lot because I don't, but then you get there and this crowd is rough, or this crowd makes you feel uncomfortable. And then you start drinking, and it snowballs and it gets into a bad situation. You knew in the beginning that your gut said, don't go. So just start living from your instinct, living from your gut. That's why they call it your gut instinct. They say your gut is the second brain, but really It feels everything. And they call it a gut instinct because everything starts in your gut. Everything stems from there. And it's in, if it feels wrong in your body or if it feels wrong or it just doesn't sit with you well, start saying no. Start, and you don't have to lie or make up excuses. Just know that you don't need to give a reason. If somebody says, "Do you want to go here?" and you say no, and they say, "Why not?" The answer is just no, because I said so. You don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to give reasons or excuses for anything. You're allowed to do what you want to do when you want to do it. So start practicing that. And I talk a lot about boundaries in a lot of my episodes, and we talk a lot about that in my course. It's just how to say no, how to start small, how to stick to those boundaries, how to, you know, give yourself the benefit of the doubt and the credit. Because the big thing about boundaries is once you start doing them, you will notice that everything starts to come together. And the last thing I'm going to say is get a support group for all of this. Get an accountability friend, group, a support group, a coach. Go to Al-Anon, go to ACOA, read resources, whatever you need to do, because you're going to need, in all of healing, you need a support group. It's very hard to do it by yourself. And again, if you're questioning why, or you say, well, I could do it, I have the willpower. It's not about the willpower. It's about the fact that your subconscious mind does not believe you are deserving or worthy. So when you have to make a decision, even though rationally, intellectually, you can talk through it and you can say, I don't want to do this, or I know I shouldn't do this. When you have to make a decision, you have to make a split decision, you're reacting from your subconscious mind. So that's going to pop up, and it is inevitably going to take control until you've brought feeling of power, empowerment, and those feelings of self-worth and those feelings of great self-esteem up into your conscious mind, so that you can know and you can feel it and you can know in your heart that you're worthy and that you deserve it, and that those are the decisions you should be making. No, I know I just said a whole lot to say a little, but the patterns of your past do not dictate our futures. Only you can decide your future, my friends. Only you can decide what kind of life you want. Only you can decide when you wake up if you're going to have a good day or a bad day. And when things come at you and life inevitably happens like it does, only you can decide how you're going to react to that. There's only a couple things you can control, and those are the things you can control. But know that every small step towards self-awareness and self-love and self-growth, it matters. It matters, it matters, it matters. You matter. I can't say that enough to you. So think about it today. Think about your reactions or your relationships with people, and think about whether they feel healthy, whether they feel toxic, whether you would be in them if you thought you had a choice. And then know that you do have a choice. You do have a choice. Continue to listen to the podcast. Go into the show notes. Grab my course, Trials to Triumph. We literally go through a guided 8-week course of all of these things that I talk about. And I show you tips and tricks. And together as a group, you have people to ask, you have a place to go, you have support. Grab it. Go there, book a chat with me. I'm here to help. I want every single person to come out at the other side, to come out in being able to walk their best, most authentic lives, know that they're worth it, and feel it in their gut. Thank you so much, guys. I hope to see you next week, and we will talk to you soon. Bye.